Before I get started, I just wanted to say that there will be light spoilers for Agravity Boys, the manga. I am really bad at letting you guys know when there's going to be spoilers in this video, but for this video, there will only be light spoilers. I say that because really there's not a whole lot of spoilery material that I could spoil, as Agravity Boys is a gag manga, but I want to let you know before we even get started in the video, light spoilers up ahead. What's going on, everybody? This is Shonen Express here, coming to you with another whole package review. This time, we're going to be looking at Agravity Boys. Just like last time and the last couple whole package reviews that I've done, we're going to be looking at this manga in 4 different categories, and those are going to be the art, the characters, the mechanics of the world, and the plot. And in these 4 categories, I'm going to discuss, kind of my thoughts on Agravity Boys, and since it just ended in the magazine, I thought this was a good time to kind of talk about it while it's still fresh in all of our minds. So yeah, without further ado, let's get right into the art. I wanted to start with the art, primarily because it's one of the most confusing parts of this manga to me. I'm so in the middle about this art, and we'll get into that here. But first of all, I think that the detail is great. I do think that this manga has moments that are beautiful, very detailed pieces of art, and it's impressive. I do think it looks nice a lot of the time, for sure. But I have this problem where I think he tries to draw things that are appealing and doesn't quite make the mark for me. I imagine that this is a personal taste, because it seems like he seems to think that he can draw these more attractive and alluring drawings, when I guess maybe it's not, they don't look good to me. And so I think that might be a more personal taste. And if that's so, leave it down in the comment section below. If you really like this art all the way through, let me know, because maybe this is just like a me thing. But I will say about the art overall, what I did like is that it was never distracting. And what I mean by that is there are some manga that I read and I'm almost distracted by how confusing the art style is to me. And so this manga, Agravity Boys, never did that. I was never confused about what was happening in the manga by the artwork. And so I think that that's a great thing when we talk about the artwork of any series, but definitely of this one too. So my kind of conflicting opinions put together leave me with this kind of weird taste about the art in Agravity Boys. And so I'm actually going to not give it a pro or a con in the art category. I'm going to leave it true neutral. I think everything balanced out when all things said and done on the art here. So that brings us into talking about the characters. Now, I will say, again, I'm very in the middle about the characters, but as we talk about them, I think you'll be able to see why. The main 4, the Agravity Boys themselves, right? The 4 characters, Saga, Geralt, Chris, and Baba, I think that all 4 of them, I like the detail that they have personality-wise, individually. I like Saga as kind of like the stereotypical main shonen guy. Geralt's a good nerd guy, and Baba is good at being, the strong one, and Chris obviously the more supporting, almost feminine presence in the Agravity Boys. And that's obviously a huge joke that is played off. But what I really like about these 4 in this series is that they all have these weird quirks about them. Maybe except Saga. Saga might not have anything specifically that does this, although he does kind of jive with all of the others. But they all have kind of weird quirks about them. Baba obviously being like the most like this women chaser that like always ends up getting catfished all the time. Like Geralt having like this very like loving, like weird, almost perverted side, and like not just the perverted thing with Geralt, but like also that stuff with that otter creature they find later, and how like he initially hates it but then comes to like love it so much. Like that was kind of funny. And it's like funny to see like this very serious, more, the stoic nerd, the glasses character kind of act in this like really weird, like loving way. So it was kind of good. And obviously Chris's whole thing about being the responsible one, being the, the caretaker, and also like the complex of like looking like a girl, running through the whole thing. I thought that the main four, all of that to say, I thought the main four were good, and they were characterized pretty well. But they do not hold a candle to what is my favorite character in Agravity Boys, which is HB, or the Higher Being. We get introduced to him right off the bat, and I think he's hilarious every single time he shows up. So, the Higher Being, I'm still not super sure if he is, like, totally different than the rest of them, or, you know, somehow similar to like humans, just like has unlocked this greater power. And specifically the last chapter really makes me confused about that. But he's funny to me the whole time. I love that he just likes torturing these kids, torturing these boys, and like trying to get them to make these hard decisions. And he helps them if they make his life interesting, which is funny. I've liked HB the whole time. I like that it's this almost godlike character who has very like mischievous intentions, and not in like an evil way, but in like a I want to laugh at your pain kind of way, which is just it's very different and very interesting. And so I thought he was funny. Now here's where we get into some of the problems. All of the other characters I didn't like at all. The Jumbros were okay, but they're not really characters. They're kind of, you know, monsters or like animals almost. They were okay, but the other team that comes, you know, like Grislow and his guys, I didn't like at all. The entire time I never liked them. None of them, I feel like, give me enough personality to really deal with anything, except for Grislow, and Grislow's personality is so annoying, because he spends all this time obsessing about Chris and, like, angry at the Agravity Boys, and I didn't like their team. All of the other side characters, like that Monica, who turned out to be, like, a police officer, and all the other people that ended up coming in and helping them at the end, they were fine, but they didn't give me any characterization or really anything to, like, attach myself to them. Like I didn't feel attached to them at all. And so that was kind of the whole thing. I didn't super love all of the other peripheral characters. But all that being said, all that on the table about the characters, I'm gonna give Agravity Boys a plus in the character category. I think it's a pro rather. And it's because I think all of their main characters are pretty good, and they have HB, which I think is a great character. So I will give Agravity Boys a pro in the character category, but to be honest with you, I'm kind of, I might be cheesing that out a little bit, just because I like HB a lot. But overall, I feel like, pretty in the middle, but maybe a little bit positive, and that's why I give it the pro here. So that will move us right along into the discussion about mechanics. And so the mechanics in Agravity Boys are confusing, to say the least. So base level, we're dealing with normal humans, right? So power system wise, we don't have to deal with that. Agravity Boys is a gag manga, so that makes more sense. It's not like a shonen battle or anything where they need this extravagant power system. They're just normal people, and they deal with kind of advanced technology. And so the things I'll start with the positives about the mechanics. I think that HB's interventions are always cool. Every time HB comes down and gives them something that is kind of like a backhanded, gift, I think is fun to see. And so like the gender diversion thing was cool. All this kind of, he talks about like the time machine. All of his interventions are interesting, right? I like when he intervenes, he gives them the means to do something that they don't already have. And so because he's this higher being, this godlike figure, that makes sense. I'm able to deal with that. But moving on from that, the technology in the series does not make any sense to me at all. At one point, they're kind of stranded on Alpha Jumbro, the planet that they land on, but all of a sudden they're able to travel to Alesta and to other planets, no problem, and we don't ever even talk about how that's possible, because the first time, the higher being just took them and dropped them on Alesta and brought them back, but we never really talk about how they're able to get back and forth between all these planets now, despite not having acquired the technology that they need. It's also, I guess, not specified how long they're there, like how much time passes throughout the whole course of the series. We don't really know. So, but this tech is just kind of weird to understand, and sometimes they do that thing where they do something and then like they barely manage to do something, and then from then on they can do it easily, which I don't love. And then we've got to talk about the end, the very end, the last couple chapters, when they do unlock a power system, but based entirely around their genitalia. And Baba obviously being the strongest with this. While I found this funny as a power system and as a mechanics for this world, drove me insane. It doesn't make sense. And it's not supposed to make sense. It is supposed to be a gag. I understand that. But I'm not a fan, is all I'm going to say. So I wasn't a fan of that whole thing. So, just not my cup of tea. So all of these things put together means that I'm going to have to give Agravity Boys a con in the mechanics section. I don't think the mechanics of this series really helped it in any way. I think it just kind of made it more confusing. And it is a gag manga, so there could be some of that I'm just not grasping because I'm not quite used to reading gag manga yet. It's kind of a recent thing that I've started reading. So it could be that that's the case, but either way, I didn't love the mechanics in Agravity Boys, and so I'm giving it a con in this category. So that leaves us with one last category, and that's the plot. I usually like to end on the plot because traditionally it's seen as one of the most important aspects of a story, and I definitely think that it is a super important element of any story. And of this story in particular, it is an important element. So, at the beginning, right? The pilot, the first chapter of Agravity Boys, I was super interested in. And for a while, actually, there at the beginning of the series, I was interested in the plot. Were they going to be able to get off Alpha Jumbro? Were there other humans? What were they going to do to do that? I was very interested in this story at the beginning. My problem is, after the pilot, after that initial, couple chapters, that initial arc or so, there just isn't a plot. It becomes kind of a weekly gag manga kind of thing with no real through line. We're not really trying to accomplish anything. And every once in a while, they remember that their objective is to figure out what happened to Earth and save it. And so we spend a chapter or two trying to do something to that effect, but we end up going back to doing silly things and usually something about, Chris looks like a girl again. There's no real plot in this series, and so that is frustrating to me, as I'm very fond of plots. Again, as I've said a lot in this video already, this is a gag manga. I'm not used to reading gag manga. It could be that's one of our problems here. That's one of the things that we're struggling with in this manga, is that I don't understand it because it's a gag. I just don't get it. So there's that, but I do think that there was one arc towards the end of this manga that, in my opinion, actually helped push it over the 50 chapter limit. I say limit because in my mind, I consider a manga very super successful if they've passed 50 chapters. Ironically, Agravity Boys is right at 50 chapters, and I do consider it successful. This was definitely a successful manga, but that's besides the point. The flashback arc that we had to where the Agravity Boys were in training and we got to see them meet each other, that was an arc that I think was intentionally done, and it was done really well. I say that because it drew my interest back in. It was that arc that I was tied back into Agravity Boys. I was very much invested in it once again, and I think it was really good. On top of that, I found it hilarious that they kept shoving broccoli up their opponents' butts, and that's how they fought. I'm quite childish, and I like childish humor, so this arc really, appealed to me in that way. I do think that the flashback helped, but overall, I don't like the plot of Agravity Boys. I think it goes nowhere, and especially the way that it ended was just non-existent. There was no, what happened to the Earth? Did we save the Earth? Are they ever going to save the Earth? Are they ever going to go back home? We have no idea. And so I don't love it. I don't love that. I don't love the plot of Agravity Boys. So that's kind of where I am. So overall, the plot is a con for me for Agravity Boys as well. I didn't love it. Not my favorite, as I've said, for all the reasons that I've talked about here. So now that we've gone through all of my, categories about this manga, we've talked about the manga a little bit, let's get down to the tier list, right? The Shonen Express manga tier list. As you can see, this is the tier list as we have it so far. Not a whole lot of things up there, but I haven't done a whole lot of reviews or, return to sender videos yet. So these are the ones that I have done. You can see where they land on the tier list. Our current frontrunner is Time Paradox Ghostwriter in the A tier, and our current, the lame duck, rather, the one lagging behind, is Barrage down there in D tier. So, just to remind you all, how I do the tier list, right? E tier is terrible. These are things I think are irredeemable. They're so bad I would never readdress them, right? That's E tier. D tier is things that I think are bad. So not terrible, just I didn't like them. Then C tier are things that I think are good. They're not phenomenal, but they're okay. I had a relatively okay time. Then B tier are things I think are great. These are manga that I really, really enjoy and will probably for years to come. A tier are things that I think are nearly perfect. They're things that have, really left an impression on me. And S tier are things that are, as I refer to, sublime. They're things that are just out of this world. They've affected me in a very specific way that I can't even articulate very well. So that's kind of how I break down the tier list. So where does Agravity Boys land on this tier list? And I gotta say, Agravity Boys, despite it definitely making me laugh on several different occasions, Agravity Boys lands in D tier, right there with Barrage. So it's one of the bottom ones that we've reviewed so far. For all the reasons that I've said. I mean, if you were keeping track throughout the video, you could see that I definitely was. There were more cons than pros when I was going through the categories. So you can definitely see that. So I think that Agravity Boys was just bad. It's just not something that I prefer. And so it gets D tier on our tier list and ties for the lowest score of any manga that I've reviewed so far. Ties with Barrage there. But so that's where Agravity Boys ends up. But hey, thank you guys so much for watching this video all the way to the end. If you have anything you'd like to say, if you want to talk about Agravity Boys or really any other manga going on in Weekly Shonen Jump or anything like that, please leave that comment down in the comment section. I'd love to interact with you. If you disagree about Agravity Boys, if you think it was a great series and you're really upset that it ended, let me know down in the comment section. I'd love to talk to you about it. Also, if you like this video, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. I bring you weekly newsletters every single week, or at least every week that Shonen Jump comes out, Weekly Shonen Jump. And I like to bring you these special review videos and all kinds of other videos that I have cooking up. So again, thank you guys for watching this video. Subscribe to my channel, like the video, and for now, this is Shonen Express signing off.